Hi everyone, welcome back to Mrs. J's Cooking, and today I'm going to show you how to make a fast homemade yeast bread. So we're going to make homemade bread today, and this is one that doesn't take as long to rise, which is good. So you can probably make this in close to an hour, maybe about 90 minutes, we'll say. This is a simple bread that you can make on your own. You just need water, sugar, flour, a little bit of oil, some butter, and yeast. So all of these things together will be able to make this bread. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull my hair back and wash my hands and get an apron on. So let's get started. Some of the equipment that I'm actually going to need, I got that out. You're gonna need a large bowl. This is gonna be for your flour and salt, and we're gonna actually add butter to that. You need two bread loaf pans, and you need a liquid measuring cup. I'm gonna use a really big one because we're gonna actually get 2 cups of water. You can either mix this by hand, you can mix this with a wooden spoon, or if you have a KitchenAid mixer or one of the big mixers, if you have a dough hook, you can use that. For those of you today though, I'm just going to mix it by hand, so that way you have an understanding of how we need to work the dough, just in case you don't have one of those mixers at home. Oh, you also should use measuring spoons because we need to measure out our yeast and measure out our salt and sugar as well. So let's get some of our ingredients here, and we need to preheat the oven. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and preheat the oven to 375 degrees. Okay, we're gonna let that preheat, and we will use that in a little bit after we get our bread dough made. So we're gonna start off with getting our water. I need 2 cups of water. That's just the right temperature for yeast, 110 to 115. And actually some people even say 105 is okay. Just make sure you don't get it too hot or it will kill the yeast and it won't get it to do what it needs to do. We wanna make sure it's hot enough. If you don't have a thermometer, that's okay. Just get the temperature of your water, not as hot as you can stand it because that would be too hot, but a little bit cooler than that. Hopefully you have a thermometer that you can check. But right now, I know you can't see my sink, but it's there, trust me. So if you remember, we need to make sure we're getting down to eye level to get our accurate measurement. So I'm just gonna set this here on my counter and get down to eye level so we can see if we have enough water, and I actually think I need a little bit more. All right, so let's see if our water is hot enough. Now, if you can't quite get it to the right temperature, it's okay to throw it in the microwave for a little bit. Well, don't throw it, but put it in the microwave for a little bit to warm it up. Do it at like 15 seconds or 20 seconds. Don't go too crazy because you don't want to get it too hot. So let's check our temperature here. Remember not to put the thermometer the whole way down in the glass because we don't want to measure the glass temperature. We want to measure the actual water temperature. So keep it suspended in the water. Right now we're at 115, which is right in the range that we want it. So I'm gonna go ahead and add 4 tablespoons of sugar. I'm gonna go ahead and add that in. I have it pre-measured out, and that way it can start to dissolve a little bit. I am gonna get a spoon here and stir it around. We wanna make sure that the sugar gets in here because we want to feed the yeast. Yeast needs something to feed off of, and it will of course feed off of the starches in your recipe later on, but just to get it going, we want to have something in there, and sugar is what we're using for this recipe. All right, now that I have the sugar stirred around and dissolved, so I'm gonna go ahead and add the yeast now. 2 packets of yeast, or if you're like me, I actually buy it in bulk. So I put like a pound in one of my mason jars or 2 of my mason jars, depending. I can't remember how much fits in there, but you would need 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon plus 1/2 of a teaspoon to equal 2 packets. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here, and we're gonna just stir it around. Whoop, I missed some of it. You wanna make sure you get it all right into your bowl there, and we're gonna actually stir this around just to get it started, and we want to let it set for a few minutes to do what's called blooming, so it makes our yeast happy and ready to go in this wonderful bread recipe. So we'll just have to wait a couple minutes, and I'll be right back to show you what that looks like. While our yeast is starting to get ready and all nice and bubbly and ready for our bread, I'm gonna go ahead and measure out my flour. I need 4 cups of flour. Now we actually might need a little bit more than that, but we're gonna go ahead and get started with that first. I am gonna go ahead and just scoop in my flour, or scoop in my 1 cup measuring cup. Some recipes are really finicky with flour, but with this bread, depending on the humidity, we might actually need a little more than 4 cups. So let's go ahead and level this one off and whoop, put that right in here. So we have our 4 cups of flour ready to go. Just need to add a few more things. Now you might see sometimes everyone just a little something. Since I am at home, I do have my kids are here and also my pet. So you just might see Winston once or twice in some of these videos because he's a pretty big pooch. He's a Great Dane, and you might hear him in the background, like right now. Okay, so I have my 4 cups of flour ready to go here, and my yeast water is doing its thing. I can see it's all bubbly, and I'll show you here in just a minute. I'm gonna actually add the salt. You need 1 tablespoon of salt. So we're gonna go ahead and add this into the flour. We wanna make sure that we mix it around so it is mixed really well into our flour here. You don't want to just add this right into the yeast because salt can actually kill yeast. So salt works like a leash. Yes, it does, Winston. It works like a leash in the recipe, which helps control it so that way your bread gets just right. That's right, buddy. It gets just right in the recipe and it does not overflow in the pan. Okay, so salt is added. Next, what we need to do is add 4 tablespoons of butter. I need to move this because your head's so big, Mr. Winston. So if you can see, there's the big lines right here. We want to make sure we cut on the 4th one. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's actually in the center because a whole stick of butter is 8 tablespoons, and we only need 4 tablespoons. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that, and I'm gonna microwave it so I can melt this butter. Don't get it too hot because we're gonna be adding that yeast water in just a minute. All right, everyone, so while our butter is melting, you can see that our yeast water is ready to go. Look at all that foam on top. It is ready to make some bread. I just heated the butter in the microwave, so we're gonna go ahead and get that out of there. But I just wanted to show you, look how foamy it is. The yeast is happy. All right, guys, so now we have our flour mixture ready, our butter's melted, and we're actually gonna add the butter into this flour salt mixture. So I'm gonna go ahead, pour that around, and we're gonna mix it up before we add our yeast water. Now that the butter's in there, we're just gonna go ahead and mix this up. I'm actually gonna switch to a wooden spoon. At this point, if you were using your KitchenAid mixer, you would have your mixer bowl filled with your flour and your salt, and then you would add your butter to that and go ahead and start using that dough hook. If you're mixing this by hand, just go ahead and get your hands in there and start stirring. But right now, I'm just using a wooden spoon, or you can use a plastic spoon, whatever mixing spoon you have. It looks like this is ready to go. And wow, wait till you guys see how this looks. Look at the foam on top of this. It is ready. I'm gonna add in the water to our flour and salt mixture, and we're just gonna start mixing it up. It's really foamy, so you wanna get all of that out of there if you can, because we don't wanna leave any yeast behind. We want our bread loaves to rise really nice, and make sure we have all of those ingredients in there. Time to mix this up. And if you don't have yeast at home, I think I might do some videos on how to make your own yeast. It is a little time consuming, but good to know because you can always make lots of different things with yeast. Of course, bread, our cinnamon buns, pizza dough, lots of soft pretzels, lots of different things that you can make. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just keep mixing this up. The more you mix it, the more the gluten processes, and the longer you mix it, it will kind of toughen it up to get that nice texture. We're gonna have to knead the dough, but you can see right now, I definitely need to add some more flour to this recipe. So I'm gonna add that, and we're just gonna allow the flours to absorb a lot of that moisture, and I'll just keep mixing until it's about the consistency of Play-Doh, and then we're going to knead the dough on the counter, and I'll show you how to do that in just a little bit. All right, so now that I have the dough just the way I wanted it, I had to add about another cup of flour. So don't be worried if that happens. It's still a little sticky, but it's not too bad. I'm gonna actually cut the dough. We don't wanna overstress the gluten because we want it to stay together. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the dough in half because we're gonna have 2 loaves of bread. And then what we're gonna do is just cover it with a damp towel for 15 minutes. And we're just gonna let this rise, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. All right, so our dough has had some time to rise. So now what I'm gonna need to do, I'm gonna punch down the dough. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour over the top just so my hands don't stick in there too much. And we're gonna just take some time here. Remember, we split that in half, so I wanna find my two separate sections and just punch down the dough. Punch down the dough. I'm gonna put a little bit of flour on the counter, and I'm gonna do something called kneading the dough. I'm gonna do this for about a minute for each of my sections of dough, and then we're gonna get ready to put it in the loaf pan. So to knead the dough, you take the heel of your hand, push, fold it over, and turn it. So remember, when you're cleaning up your flour, don't get it wet or you'll have a sticky mess. So you want to try to brush all of this to clean it up first. If you have things like this or something flat, that works too. But you want to get any of this extra flour up first. If you make it wet, you'll have quite a mess. All right, on to the next part. You need your bread pans, and you also need some oil. Our dough is looking good. It's looking ready here. So what we're gonna do is oil the bread pans, not too much, just enough to try to keep it from sticking. So I'm just pouring in there maybe like 1/4 of a teaspoon, if that, and I'm just gonna take a paper towel. Now you can use your hands if you want, and go all along the bottom here. And then we're gonna get our bread right into the pan, and it's going to actually rise again. So we had 15 minutes first, and at this point we're gonna let it rise 30 minutes. Hands are oiled, ready to go. We'll set that aside. And we need to get our dough out of here. And what you're gonna do is actually fold the bread under. So any of that crease, it's going right here. So the crease is going right here. Fold that under, and then we're gonna go ahead and put that right into our loaf pan. We're gonna let the bread rise for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to score it or cut into the bread, and I'll show you that in a little bit. All right, everyone, so our bread took some time to proof or rise, and now what we need to do is just score the top of it. So I'm just gonna use a nice slicing knife here, and I'm actually gonna go across the top of the bread like that. You could also cut it down the center, but I'm gonna go across the top. All right, when you're doing this, just quick slices. So these are ready to go in the oven. They look beautiful. I can't wait to see how they turn out. 375 degrees for 30 minutes. All right, everyone, this looks amazing. So tell me down below, have you made homemade bread before, or is there anything that you've made with yeast before? I'd love to hear about it in your comments. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Bye.